What's up, everyone? Welcome back to this edition of the GASOCast. We got the San Antonio boys here, Blue, Tim, myself, here to recap a very, very fun San Antonio Fall Tour event last Saturday. Before we get going with that, some housekeeping. We keep pumping up the G1 series, and y'all are listening. Over 50 teams have committed to that. So we're continuing to answer questions and provide details. So sign up and visit our. I'll put that form in the description here. But G1's coming a way for GASO to provide a circuit that matters for players in Texas. So we're going to talk about San Antonio today, but we're heading on the road again to Houston. This thing doesn't stop for a loaded weekend with our GASO Fall Tour event in Houston. Those matchups are going to be insane. And then Sunday, we have our next gen event, which myself and Lyndon are currently roster building. And that's one of the funnest things with all the talent, being able to create those rosters and those matchmaking. So Sunday's going to be epic in Houston. If you're media watching this, make sure you sign up for the media link to get there. It'll be a great eval weekend all around. And yeah, we're in the thick of it right now. We'll be finishing up our fall tour October 11th in Dallas. And then our prep and JUCO showcase is just as loaded. So in middle of October. So we're just rocking and rolling on a little bit of fumes here as we continue to prepare each week. But we're excited to be with y'all today. So fellas, how are y'all feeling after leaving San Antonio? What are some early just thoughts? Tim, I'll start with you.
Early thoughts. I mean, you have some guys that answered a lot of questions. I feel like teams are preparing for this event and other fall events a lot sooner, so they come out playing a little bit clean, and you start to get a true feel for who's going to be able to do what and kind of where they're going to be able to position themselves. Uh, I like several teams that will potentially contend, obviously, for district championships and obviously put themselves in position for, state tournament type runs. So it's very going to be very interesting to see how they build from this moment, this past weekend, where they're at mid October when we close out, and then what they're going to look like at the beginning of November when we get back out and when tournament play and open season hits.
Blue, what about you? What were your thoughts?
Encouraged. I mean, it wasn't. You weren't looking at a one-hit wonder. I don't think with after watching San Antonio Harlan and what they're building as a program there, and then I'll talk about Brennan here in a second in depth, but they're a program from top to bottom. I think that we found some key talking points when it comes to the team rankings and where some of these guys might fall. You had a lot of competitive games out there. It seems like once again, everybody that had to lead the charge, especially you, Michael, on you and Lyndon on making the schedule, and then Tim following in and us looking over it all together. The matchups were great, and I think that we learned a lot by just seeing the competitiveness of teams. And look at Antonian, look at Holy Cross, look at St. Michael's. I think that you always wonder what do the teams look like after successful years and coaches moving on to retirement, or teams getting new players or losing players whenever you're in that private school or high school setting. Is that what is the team going to look like? And I think that some of those questions were answered, and I think that coming into here is different than it does in Dallas, because we talked about it before. You're looking for that mesh of like who's going to be the top team, and then all of a sudden we might have found them.
I definitely agree. The one thing I drove away thinking, because I left and went straight back to Dallas that night, which may be a mistake, maybe wasn't. But just thinking about some of these districts and like how deep they are, and it's just not like you have to really bring it to be able to just make the playoffs. So that tells me a lot about the depth in the city. And I like that you touched on the private schools, because I feel like there were so many competitive taps in other private schools that came to play. So I'm very happy with that just initial feeling leaving the city after a fun weekend of basketball. So let's get into our official segments. Um, this is a team segment. What did you learn? What was something that you learned about a team or teams down there over the weekend? Tim, I'll start with you.
St. Michael's is not going away. I feel like, Cooper Land does a really, really good job of always getting his guys prepared. When you start looking at uh, the loss of a Bo Ogden, and you start talking about the state caliber type team that they were. Now you add in Jada Buchanan, and now you combine him with Son Jinkle. I mean, those two are to be dealt with. I mean, Son is a legitimate Division I prospect. When you look at his size, when you look at his measurables and his skill set, combining all of those, and then you have the commitment for Dallas Baptist and Jaden with his athleticism to go along with his skill set to kind of go along with that. They're a load, and then they've always been very systematic. They don't get flustered by anybody trying to do anything different. They don't get thrown a loop with additional size or any athleticism that's thrown their way. They just are who they are. So St. Michael's is one that I really like, that checked the box for me in terms of looking to see what they were going to look like with Bo Ogden transferring.
Yeah, for me, what I learned is that 26-5A ain't no joke. And when I played, we were 26-5A in my district, so it's always fun to see like that pop up. But I mean, when you look at Wagner, Piper, Alamo Heights, Bernie Champion, and the likes of like a New Braunfels, um, that's too many teams to make the playoffs. So at some point, like something's gonna give. But every one of those teams over the weekend, I saw something that was like, oh, they have the pieces to go win that district. So when you're loaded like that, you start to kind of take that next look of, okay, if you can make it out of that district, then you're going to be so battle tested. I mean, are we looking at one of those teams right there uh, that could possibly represent the region in the Alamo Dome based off just how battle tested they'll be night in, night out? So that was something I learned, that district's going to be fun to see how they compete. And they all, uh, yeah, they all got to it. Blue, I wanted you to finish because I know you wanted to talk about this team, and for good reason. When we talk about who was loud in the arena, this team was very loud. Blue, take us home.
Hey, it was also their passionate fans. I had a couple of the Brennan parents come up to me and go, "Hey, what was that about Frisco Memorial going 2-0 on paper?" Well, I mean, I can sit here and be honest with y'all, though people may not believe me when I say, "Hey, I didn't realize that they were going to be playing Brennan, but good." They went out there and they proved a lot. Not to me, they're just that great of a program. And I remember talking to Cody Cowgill. It might have been like after the Christmas tournaments or somewhere along the way, and he told me in some way, he told me, he goes, "We're going to be even better the next couple of years." And I think that comes from inside him believing, one, that they're a program. We always talk about Duncanville and Allen. Think of Brennan. Brennan is a basketball, you know, a basketball program that's going in there and winning ball games, that are learning skills and so forth. And Cody, I think, does a really great job. And they go out there and they produce. I mean, when you look at this team here, I mean, we're talking about, are they number one in the state? Well, we still need to see a Tascasita. Tascasita is absolutely loaded, and we'll talk more about them as we go into Houston and we get to see them for a couple games, and they'll be battle tested coming out of the weekend at GASO. But when you look at Donovan Chris and in his development, this UT, he's going to UTEP, and then he can play both ways. Like, he's a defender, he's a shooter, he's a scorer. I mean, he's just big, he's strong, he's lean. You add Delano Tarpley back into this to this lineup, and what this does is give them a true center here to block shots, to rim run, to cause some havoc in the middle of that paint for them. This is so easy to break down their team in an exciting way with Taylor and Todd. Like, if you went up there, and I don't even know the answer to this, if you just go from top to bottom with Donovan and Talon and Isaiah Ward, you're talking about a lot of wins. You're talking about a lot of games that they have played on that varsity level. They tasted how close they have been in previous years, and so they have to come out here and finish the job. Those 5 players: Donovan Chris, Delano Tarpley, Talon Todd, Jacob Padilla, Isaiah Ward, they all finished in double digits. So they're sharing the ball with each other. They know how to score. They have this chemistry there. It's just a dangerous program. That there's something to be said here, that these kids, their chemistry, the way that they play through the system, it's unbelievable. And especially for you, Michael, that you're going to turn around and go, okay, this is a little bit of a statement. Not because maybe so much as at a GASO, but they want to just go out and compete and win every single scrimmage, every single play, every single minute of every second. It's it's so awesome. It is great, and I think Isaiah Ward is one of those kids that comes back. He's fresh. He feels great. I thought he played on another level because he's kind of moving over to a more natural position, and where he can rely on Tarpley to really man the middle, because their guard play is really going to lead them with just with Padilla, Todd, and Chris. And I know Tim wants to add to this talking point, especially with a healthy Isaiah Ward.
We talked about it. We've been talking about it to a degree. I think you even sent out a tweet about it as far as people needing to take a deeper dive into it. You definitely need to peel the onion back on Isaiah Ward. I mean, I don't know how else to put it when you start talking about a kid that just brings winning intangibles to the table. Um, can at the high school level defend, 4, sometimes 5 positions, depending on what your lineup looks like. He's a kid with a high IQ that understands offensive and defensive concepts that can essentially break you down and understand what you're trying to do offensively and take it away from you. Uh, on the opposite end, he can score multiple ways or set up his teammates. So, when you start talking about a player with his versatility, it only enhances what they're capable of doing. I have in depth conversations with Cody quite a bit. Uh, been around him and talked with him for a number of years since he's been trying to, bring this group of young men up. Uh, one thing that stood out to me that was impressive is that you start to see, and you talked about the chemistry, Blue, and it's evident they've had the chemistry for the last couple of years as far as how they play well together. But now I think this is probably a dangerous team because they can play multiple ways. This is a thing that I kind of took away from this past weekend when you look at Brennan. Before, when you look at the lineup, you would say, okay, with Kingston Flemings, Cam Cowgill, and others that were there, they had to play fast in order for them to be effective. Now they can beat you multiple ways. They can play fast or they can play slow, as you alluded to in terms of Delano coming to the lineup. Now they can kind of slow it down. They can get him a touch inside, or if they want to post Isaiah, they can get him a touch inside. But both players can face up and make decisions, whether they're passing the basketball or making a play off the dribble. And then you have Donovan Chris, you have Talon Todd, um, Jacob Padilla, and all the others that they have in the stable. And then we're talking about kids that are coming off the bench. Time Todd, who's a capable player that can knock down shots. They can play multiple ways. They're bigger, they're stronger, they understand how teams have attacked them before, and they do their job behind the scenes to try to take those things away now that were once weaknesses and turn them into strengths. If there's anything that stands out to me to this team, I think it's their commitment to get stops. They've always been, one that kind of, has had the ability to put the ball in the basket, but I think their ability to get stops, and I said this about them last year, people were saying Kingston this and Kingston that. I say, stop, guys. Their ability to get stops consecutively. It's not one or two, it's consecutive 3 or 4. And that's how you expand leads. That's how you stay in competitive ball games. And that's ultimately how you win games and potentially championships. So we will see what this leads to. I still have a couple other teams that can possibly challenge them, but we will see how that fares, as we move along down the road.
Yeah, I agree. And the one thing that I loved so much about the weekend was, yeah, the Kingston Fleming experience is over, but it's never going to be gone. He was right there behind the bench, being the loudest cheerleader for them this weekend, and you can feel that culture just there. That his legacy will be felt for seasons and seasons and years to come. So it's always great to see these kids come back and cheer on their boys. So moving on to the next segment, what did you learn about a player this week, or players? And I'll start. The future is very bright at Schertz Clemens with that 2028 class. They have a ton of guards over there, but when you look at Bryson Bell and Ja'Kai Woods, I mean, those two play so well off of each other. The finesse, the IQ that Bryson Bell plays with is going to very quickly turn to one of the top point guards in the city. Just the way he plays with pace, his feel, his shot making. And then you have Ja'Kai Woods, who's just an absolute dog. No fear, plays so hard, plays so physical, and shows how much he wants it. That's the type of like back and forth you want with, especially two guards that are coming up young. They're being put into this position as sophomores, ready to lead a show in a loaded district. And I like the way that they were feeding off each other, and they just want that moment, and we're making big time plays. So I learned that backcourt over there at Clemens, the young backcourt is going to be really, really good. Tim, back to you.
DJ Harge, Pflugerville Hendrickson, he's a kid, we kind of watched play a little bit during the spring and summertime, and he showed the ability to really kind of score it a little bit. But I said, okay, how is he going to come to the table with a different set of players, different set of systems and schematics put in place? And DJ Harge, really, really looked a whole lot cleaner to me. I mean, that's very important for me from a guard standpoint. Somebody who can actually come out and come play the game clean, get to their spots, comfortably without, having to take extra dribbles, getting their shot off clean, or getting others involved. And so he showed that ability um, coming off of the spring and summer that he had. He showed that he's still going to be, willing to do those things, for Will Hendrickson. And then another player, Caden Deffenbaugh, really kind of confirmed for me his New Mexico State status. I mean, I knew he was a player. I had followed him before, and when you look at what he brings to the table, most importantly, physically, obviously he's going to be able to come in and possibly play for them early on just because of his body. But then his shot making ability has gotten a lot more consistent. How it comes off his hand, really, really clean and quick. Guys are trying to rotate to him. And if you're late, he has the ability to knock that shot down. And not only that, if you're on time, he still has the ability to put it on the floor and finish at the rim. I mean, he's a really, really rounding out to a solid player that I think, is going to be, one to deal with, when it comes down to it at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Blue, what'd you learn from a player this weekend?
Well, let me just add, Deffenbaugh is so strong on the lower end of his body that he can just rise up, and that shot coming off his hands, you just think that it's got a chance every single time. But I want to focus here on Austin Westlake's Mac Martin, 6'6", kind of do it all wing here. They went 0-2, but they were missing some pieces. Bo Ogden visiting Tennessee. I believe that they had another guard that was out, that was sick. So you can't just put everything on these two games. We'll see them again in Dallas on October 11th. But just to think that how Mac Martin can go out there and lead this team offensively, and how the thought of the backcourt of him and Bo Ogden are going to be pretty high level as they share the ball between each other and their teammates. It's wow. Mac Martin he put up 33 points in his second game against Cibolo Steel. I mean, he's having to do a lot out there this weekend, and I just think that he does a lot of things with a purpose, obviously to score, but I mean just purposely getting to spots, making scoring in space, creating the space in his area in which that he can get a bucket because he's so quick laterally with and without the ball, and that's what I like to see when you have a bunch of big names that you play along with. But what happens when you're stripped of a couple of teammates for a weekend, as we usually see in the fall, as people take visits and so forth? What do you do? Well, he stepped up.
Absolutely. I like this next segment. Proved you right. We talk a lot behind the scenes internally, like, hey, look out for this guy. I think he's gonna have a big weekend. So I'll start with you, Tim, because you were like, hey, I even asked you about this kid because I hadn't seen him live, and I was like, which one? Like, will you let me know which one he is? And he said, you won't need me to tell you who he is. You'll see. And we saw very quickly. That was London Jackson, 2029, and he proved you right, huh?
Knockdown shots. I mean, Harlan itself, I mean, the schedule that was put out for those guys, I mean, kind of fit the bill. I know Coach Hall really loves those tough matchups coming out just to try to truly evaluate kind of what they have and what he needs to work on. But I've always felt like, after I seen him, last year in a couple of eighth grade competition, that this kid was going to be the one, and followed him a little bit during the summertime, just kind of waiting for him to put on the Carolina blue, if you will, in black with Harlan.
Yeah.
Lefty that can really, really shoot it. But not only that, because sometimes people kind of label him as a shooter, he's a decent athlete that's progressing. I mean, he's 6'4", 6'5", that has a little bit of lift to him. But, I mean, his shot-making ability, even when the lights are bright, he's not afraid of the moment. He's eager to go out and go make plays. But then the thing that also really kind of is intriguing for me is the fact that he defends and also willing to go and go get on the glass and rebound the basketball and compete because he knows his team needs that. And those are the things that, obviously translate well, being able to do that. Coaches are going to want to come in and come take a peek to see if he's willing to compete. And those are the things that, he's going to have to continue to do for Harlan to be successful.
Absolutely. No, he was a dude this weekend. For me, we mentioned him a little earlier, but Sun Jin Call is a dude, absolute dude. And what I love sometimes is I'll talk with some college coaches that are there watching, And I like to just chirp at them a little bit, and I'll be like, "Too good for y'all, right?" And they'll be like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." Which was great to hear that, like you mentioned, Tim, like bona fide D1 guy, um, is starting to play above the rim. And if he's watching, he'll know that one layup that he did where he was playing around above the rim. He could have dunked it, but he dropped it in. And almost like even those show like the athleticism sometimes a little more because you're like, oh, and then you see the layup. But I mean, the shot making, he just knows he belongs, the confidence. He plays fast. He plays so fast. Um, it was great to see that next step. Like you talk about that St. Michael's team moves around some pieces, but they're still so primed and poised to get whatever they want out of this season, and tons a big part of that. Blue, who proved you right this weekend?
Well, I had brought up the question, I believe in the newsletter last week about Holy Cross. I mean, where do they go from going from 11 wins in district, 11-1 overall in their taps, I believe, 4A. Where do they go this year with so many of the pieces to their success last year graduating? Well, they come out, they go 2-0 against some 5As, and Dominique Volley was out there leading them. I mean, he had averaged over 20 points this weekend. And so you look at this team and you look at the makeup of this team and how do they, when they stepping out onto the court, there's no intimidating factor. They just go out there and play basketball as a team. He goes out there and Dominique can go out there and get the separation, knock down shots. He'll get into the paint and finish through a little bit of contact there. He's going to handle the ball. Steve Hernandez is another guy here that I want to mention that you're right is going to get 22 points against Hutto. How are these guys doing it? Because they are playing together. They obviously you can see it when they're playing. The passion they have for each other, the chemistry again is very key this past weekend, and so they have a lot of this moving pieces along the way here of how chaotic they want to make things for you on when they're playing defense, and then how fast they are in transition and get the ball moving, and those two guys, they led the way very quickly for this team.
Yeah, one thing I love about these fall events is that you get excited to see different prospects. You have some internal conversations with yourself about, okay, I wonder what this player's going to look like here. So this final segment for this GASOcast is who answers some questions. Who is somebody that simply you were excited to see perform this weekend, and you're curious about what that next step would look like? Tim, who is that for you?
Dylan Howard. I mean, at Buda Hayes, we saw him playing a little bit with the Syntex Houston Hoops group, and then we saw that even evolve because I think he finished the summer out playing with the Houston Hoops group when they went out to the EYBL. And so when we're sitting up looking at a kid like this who is taking his game to the next level, we went out and evaluated him. I want to say early November, December last year, and there were some questions as far as like how would his skill set translate. And talking with Coach Sandoval a little bit, he said, the killers are willing working. He gets in the gym, and so it's been evident. He's put it on the necessary weight that he needed to be able to compete at the position that he's playing, but then also adding on the skill set to be able to put it on the floor, scoring at all three levels, fluid shooter, competes on both ends, to do whatever he needs to do to help elevate his team. So that in itself stood out to me. And then another young man who took on, I don't want to say a new role for him, but it's more of a full time role for him now, and it's Talon Todd. When you have a kid like Kingston Flemings, playing the one for you for so many different years, and you're pretty much slotted from a recruitment standpoint at the same position, it does make it a little bit tough, but he's always carved himself out as a niche to get on the floor, whether it be shot making, whether it be, even making plays on the defensive end, showing his two-way ability. Now he has the ball in his hand. Now he's in a decision-making role that everybody has had questions about whether or not what they would look like when Kingston left. And I've always felt like, okay, when given the opportunity, this kid could deliver. And now you're starting to see him do that on a more regular basis, coming off the summer that he had, and then committing to Troy. You can kind of see why Troy and their staff was really kind of locked in on a kid like this with his versatility from a guard standpoint, being able to now make decisions, but also his shot making ability. So you see it all make sense and come to fruition.
Blue, I love this name for you for sure.
Yeah. So Cameron Crenshaw of San Antonio Wagner. I think this is key in multiple ways, kind of like how Delano Tarpley is for Brennan. Um, Crenshaw is going to take a lot off of Trayvon Clark's plate, and I think we saw a little bit about that, a little bit of that this weekend. They're playing with San Antonio Wagner. It opens it up a little bit more for his teammates because he can man the middle. Now, I mean, physically, he needs to. Yeah, he's just matured. He's going to take over eventually. He's going to get a little stronger. He's going to get some strength. But the things that he does well is can be game changing. The stride in which he can get up and down the court very quickly to be a lob threat and run the middle of the floor in offensive transition. That who's going to be able to keep up with him with those long legs and those long reach? Just throw the ball near the hoop and he's going to go get it. And we saw that a few times. I think that also where he's just getting better at is being able just to score around the rim when he does have a little bit of time just to catch the ball and go face up. But I just think also a big part of his strength is going to be to allow Trayvon Clark to be Trayvon his senior year and allow him to be out a little bit more on the perimeter and not have to go inside so much, as long as Cameron can man that middle and just continue to be consistent with the rebounding on both ends and altering shots and block. I mean, he just gets up above the rim so easily.
I definitely agree. We're excited to have Cam come to our next gen event this Sunday in Houston to continue to build that momentum. I'll finish this out with Will Franklin of East Central. What I love about Will is that he just makes so many winning plays, and he's a great piece. He was a great role player, and I say that with no shade. He made plays and timely plays for that team. So I was curious to see what that next level might look like. And this weekend, he turned into an absolute killer. You could tell that he was not just there to participate. He wanted to take over. And he did that in the same way that he would affect winning last year when I saw him. He just made more and more plays. And oftentimes when you see kids take another step or have a new role, a bigger role, they sometimes shy away from trying to make too many plays, and he just continued to make plays after plays and knew what type of plays he was making that turned into big dunks, that turned into big shot making. That was like, I want the ball. And to see that happen so quick, that makes this East Central team even scarier because there's so much that I like about that team with Bard, with Wofford, with Oliveris. You have Will Franklin now. This is another team that's loaded with guys that can go do it. And it was great to see Will Franklin, a do-it-all guy, have his moments of, I want to lead this show. And he did it at a high, high level. So very cool to see
Yeah.
that for sure. Uh, Tim?
Really, really good selection. I like that one because we saw him make a couple of plays with the Church Cowboys, if you remember, uh, in Dallas during the live event a couple of
Yep,
times. You know, when there were some moments, I think he even had to leave the building at one day in time to go and go get stitches and came
yep.
back and obviously hit the game winner. So just to try to show his toughness, so the playmaking ability that you're alluding to, his willingness to go and do it and the manner that he's doing it bodes well for them for sure.
Absolutely. So yeah, we'll be talking more players in our newsletter. We'll also be previewing Houston. Houston's going to be just as loaded. I can't wait a week from now to be talking about what we see in Houston between that and the next gen. But before we go, I'll just say, man, San Antonio's in a good place per usual. Regardless of whatever noise people want to talk about, it's heading in the right direction. So that's all you can ask at this time. And I'm excited to see these teams tip off their season. So we'll be talking to y'all very soon. Check out for that newsletter Friday. But until then, we'll see y'all out there. Peace.